I got into this thought process due to someone commenting on one of my posts that I had no clue about ADD, ADHD, and that all these symptoms I'm, coming up with on that post, they're all ADHD related, and so it doesn't make any sense and all that kind of stuff. And I'm commenting on it because I'm that one person that understands this. I got diagnosed with ADD and ADHD both in kindergarten, and they wanted to put me on meds, but luckily my parents intervened, and I fought my way through it in different ways. And maybe ADHD was also a reason why I chose to go down that path with substances. But now I work through the addictions and I work through my addictive tendencies, and I'm left with handling my ADHD, ADD, if you want to call it. But I don't identify with any of that stuff anymore, because I think the first step of removing these obstacles in your life is if you clean up your language. If you're constantly telling yourself that you're sick, if you're constantly telling yourself that you've got a certain problem, it's pretty much impossible to work through it, because your cells are listening. Your soul is listening. If you're always repeating to yourself that you cannot focus, you're always repeating to yourself that you're an addict, if you're always repeating yourself that you've got an alcohol or a cocaine problem or benzo problem, if you're constantly repeating that to yourself, what do you think is going to happen? Just reinforcing whatever is going on. So that's one of the first steps in my program, as we clean up the language. Then, why do I understand what's going on with ADD and ADHD and addictions? It's because I've lived it. I've been doing cocaine for many years to slow my brain down and to be calm and collected and to fit in. And clearly that creates a lot of problems down the line, but at the time, this was my self-medication. Because me taking Ritalin or Adderall was not an option, because I completely changed when I was on them in terms of personality and behavior, and my quality of life decreased immensely. Like, I wouldn't eat properly. Like, I would literally become a different person. So when I moved to Colombia in my early 20s and I had that first line of pure cocaine, I was like, holy shit, this reinforces my positive traits of my personality. This makes me more fun, I'm more outgoing, I'm more focused. I can drink a bit as well on the side. Like, it's all good, right? It literally seemed to me that there was no downside to it. And so I stuck with it. And it became a problem, obviously, a couple of years down the line, right? Because it always does. If you mask a certain problem, if you cover it up, if you don't work on the root and dissolve it or integrate it, it will always create a problem down the line. All of a sudden, you're on a different frequency. You start attracting in different people and different types of personalities into your life that don't match your actual personality and your actual frequency. And so that creates another bunch of problems, especially if you're self-employed and if you're building businesses. And it just is a downward spiral from there. I combined the dry sniffing later with alcohol because it smoothens the edges, as you probably know, and it just worked fine. I could still do my exercise, I was still working out, I was still doing my sports, I was still eating well, I was still going to the sauna, I was still living my life, right? And then when certain crises hit, you up the dosage, you drink more, and that's when it gets really shitty, right? And so what I'm saying here is, I understand what it means to be an ADD, ADHD person, I've lived with that my entire life, and only since recently, it's been handled much better. But only after I stopped using any substance, any drug, any prescription, any upper or any downer. Doesn't matter, legal, illegal, doesn't matter if it's prescribed by a doctor or not. Only after I got everything out of the system and I started meditating and I started to sit with myself and I dissolved all these programs running in the background, and I worked on the subconscious and I integrated, and I also did plant medicine, all that kind of stuff that just compounds with time, and these creating these different habits in life, waking up early and eating right all the time, and leaving certain environments and being surrounded by certain people, or not being surrounded anymore by certain people that keep on pulling me down, just compounds. It's all these small steps that change your life ultimately. It doesn't always have to be that ayahuasca session, because I'm a proponent of plant medicine, but in the right setting and in the right order, and I understand sometimes it's the only solution. Sometimes you just don't have the motivation and the ability to work through everything first, and to go to therapy and to see a guide or a mentor and to surrender to the process, because it's not easy. I understand, I really do. So sometimes that is the best choice, but then go to the jungle, go to a proper shaman and do your due diligence and your research, and talk to people that have been there before and stuff like that, because there's energy leeches going on and all kinds of stuff. I'm pretty deep on that topic. If you have any questions, just hit me up, but that's a different topic and a different video, because it's going to be too long. But just be wary of certain energetics in these environments, because you open up completely, right? Like, you're just very vulnerable is the right word. And so if you're weak and if you're not strong enough to fight off certain energies, then it's even more important to choose the right location, right, and the right shamans and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, fighting and working through and being persistent with these lows in your life, which you will reach if you don't work on your root of the problem, is basically the only solution. Then you will keep pushing, you will try certain things, you will relapse, you will go a few steps backwards, and that's fine, right? Like, that's basically how I did it. I just started with removing painkillers out of my life, removing the opioids, and removing the weed and the cannabis, and removing the cocaine, and then I was left with the alcohol in the end. And since I was drinking for, 17 years at the time, I realized, like, holy shit, there's deeper stuff going on with the alcohol and my soul and my energetic imprints and my family and my ancestry. And that's when I really had to go and work super deeply on certain topics. And maybe that's also another video, just the alcohol itself. But what I'm saying here is, I removed each substance, each drug out of the way and out of my system, and then took me another 2 years to get rid of the alcohol, because I didn't really want to get rid of it. I was still drinking on a daily basis, almost having a glass of wine whilst cooking, but I wouldn't really have these binges anymore. Once I became a father, I stopped partying completely, and I stopped getting like blacked out and drinking like way too much and stuff like that. But I was still drinking. I still knew that it was going to end at some point, and that it was just another phase that would be done at some point. But yeah, it took me another 2 years, I would say, and then it was finally out of the system. And I slowly pushed it out. I wouldn't stop cold turkey or anything like that, which I never recommend. But yeah, eventually it was maybe once a week, 2-3 glasses of wine. Then it was 1 glass of wine, and then it was once per month, and then it was gone completely eventually. But that was all simultaneously while constantly working on it, and working on myself, and working on the basis, right? The body, the integration, the center, the calmness, the presence. All these factors, they factor in to your recovery immensely, even though you might not think that. But these little bits and pieces, they have to be aligned in the end for you to really be free of the urge to drink something, and the urge to go into drugs and stuff like that, and the urge to consume. You really have to align all of those. And that's my program, because I understood on my journey that just working with a psychotherapist and a therapist on my mental framework and on my habits is not enough for me. And I was working with a doctor, I was detoxing, I was fixing my whole structure and my parasite, and like everything, literally everything I went through was crucial to this process, and it was needed, because like after so many years of abuse of these substances and alcohol and drugs, your body is deficient in so many minerals and vitamins, and your nervous system needs recovery, your nervous system needs to be realigned, your adrenal glands, they're screaming, and so you need to understand that if you start to work with me, we will work on all of this. I put everything that I know and everything that I've been through and everything that I work with all these different experts, I put all of it into the program. And it's a tailored program to your needs, because everybody's different. That's why these courses online, they don't work, in my opinion, especially not with addiction, because there are certain things that are the same for everyone, like you have to fix your sleep, you have to fix your nutrition, you have to fix your movement, and your recovery, like physical recovery and mental recovery. Those are all the same, but those little bits and pieces in between, they're different for each person, because like you will have used in a different way, you abused your body in a different way, your baseline is different, right? So we'll look at that in a very detailed way. We will analyze what's going on with you. We'll find the root of your problem. We'll work on the subconscious, we'll work on the mental, we'll work on the habits, we'll work on the programming, we'll dissolve, we'll integrate, we'll reintegrate, we'll detox, we'll fix the body as good as we can in 3 months, because it's not a long time, but we'll do the baseline, we'll do the basics, and I can still be there for you after that if you want to, because I have a support system that is going to be present for you afterwards if you want that. And so there is time to fix everything, because fixing the body in 90 days, like really fixing it, is not easy. It's gonna require more time. But we will work on the basics and whatever can be done in 90 days so you are set up for success and you won't relapse and you will be sustainably free from these addictive tendencies, and your addiction won't feel like an addiction anymore because it won't be present anymore. Like, I can have a glass of wine now and I can stop if I want to, and I can, I don't feel like I have to finish the bottle like it used to be. Yeah, the bottle is gonna go bad, right? Like, you have to drink it today. And then the second one will be opened. And then there will be a line, and then, that's the whole process with it. So, I'm not saying I'm drinking now, because I'm not. Because I don't think it's part of my life anymore, and it's not supposed to be part of my life anymore, because I want to be sharp, I want to be 100% present, with my kids and with my wife. So I'm not drinking anymore. But I'm saying, if I would, and I have a alcohol-free beer here and there, and it doesn't even like resemble, any drinking like that I used to do before, right? But it's just gone, it's just completely gone. And once you get to that different frequency, you feel like alcohol is always pulling you down and keeping you down, and drugs are keeping you down, and it's just not part of your life anymore. You don't want to be down there anymore, right? Because you've tasted how it is up there. I'm attracting all the right people into my life. I'm attracting the right business partners into my life. I'm attracting the right friends into my life. I'm attracting the right environment into my life. Because once you focus on you and cleaning yourself up, everything sheds away that's not supposed to be there. And that's totally fine, You don't have to be around people that, don't understand where you're going. You can still be, like friendly with them and talk to them now and then, but you just don't have to like hang out with them on a daily basis anymore. Same goes for family members. If there's people in your life that try to keep you in your old personality and your old being, and they constantly remind you of who you were yesterday and a year ago or 2 years ago, then these people have to be out of your life. You can talk to them and make sure like that they understand where you're going and what you're doing, and that what they are doing is not good for you. And if they keep on doing that, then you know what to do, It's just the way it is. Hit me up if you have any questions. Slide in my DMs. We can schedule a free discovery call, free strategy call, and see, if we can work together, because 90 days of intensive work, we have to get along. Like, that's the absolute basis of it. And I have to see that you're 100% ready for change. Because if you're not willing to, surrender to these new things that I will show you and to do them, and then it's not going to work. You have to be really ready for it, and I will guide you through the process. I will hold your hand if you want to, if that's what you want, and if not, then it's also fine. There's other people out there that do a good job, even though I don't think there's anyone doing what I'm doing in that sustainable, holistic approach, without any heavy medication, with natural remedies, and with a proven framework, stuff that works. I'm the best example. After 19 years of addictions, I'm free from them. So you can do it too. there's hope.